Hey guys, it's rivots. Today's video is going to be how to build a hamster carrier. To build the carrier, you are going to need a hand drill with a 10mm drill for piercing the corners and a 3mm drill for piercing the plastic, a keyhole saw, also called a pad saw, with a finely toothed blade for cutting the plastic, a half round file which is flat on the one side and round on the other with fine teeth for smoothing the rough edges, a junior hacksaw for cutting the plastic trim strips, tin snips or very heavy duty scissors for cutting the mesh, 3mm rivets with a pop rivet gun, and washers to put on the back because the plastic is too soft to hold the rivets, a sharpie, 2 clamps to hold the plastic trim strips to the mesh, and a set square to help with the markings. You'll also need a 9-litre bin to make a carrier, or a bin equivalent to the minimum cage size of 450 square inches if you're making it into a full-time cage, some mesh which is no wider than a centimetre so your hamster can't escape, and plastic trim strips or another material to cover the edges of the mesh with. Covering the mesh is optional. I know not everyone does it, but for me it prevents any injuries and it gives the cage a cleaner look. First, we'll need to work out where you are going to cut on the lid for the mesh. If you are planning to cover the sharp edges of the mesh with a piece of plastic like us, make sure you don't cut too close to the edge of the lid so there's room for it. Using a junior hacksaw, which is a finely toothed blade, take your strip of plastic and cut off a small square. Press that square against the edge of the bin and use it as a guide for where to cut. On the inside, draw an outline of where you're going to cut with a sharpie. When you've drawn the outline of the lid, use a 10mm drill to drill a hole in each corner of the lid, ensuring that each hole is lined up perfectly with both lines. Don't go too fast with the drill because it could crack and melt the plastic if you're not careful. If the plastic melts, it will stick to the teeth of the drill and cause it to clog up. These holes will help prevent the development of running cracks and give a starting point for when you begin to cut out the plastic with the keyhole saw. These holes also give a cleaner finish to the corners. Start to cut out the plastic following your outlines with a keyhole saw, which is also known as the pad saw. The blade needs to be finely toothed because of how thick the plastic is. Don't go too fast when cutting, as like with the drill, the plastic will melt and stick to the teeth. Use a fine file to smooth down the rough edges of plastic, not going too fast at the risk of the plastic melting. You could use a medium or finely grit sandpaper. Make sure your file is fine because a thick one will just make the edges rougher instead of smoother. Work out how much mesh you'll need by placing it on the inside of the lid. You'll want to overlap the mesh with the edge of the rectangle so you can attach it easier and cover the edge of the mesh with your plastic. Mark on the amount of mesh you'll need with a sharpie and use a pair of tin snips to cut out the mesh to the right size. You can use the edge of the file to flatten the mesh after if you happen to bend it. Take your plastic trim strips and mark on the sizes of the 4 pieces you're going to be cutting with a sharpie. Cut the plastic along the marks with a junior hacksaw and smooth the edges down with a file. You can use the first piece as a guide for the second piece. Line up your strips of plastic against the edge of the lid and use a pair of clamps to hold everything in place. Use a 3mm drill to drill holes at even spaces where you're going to have the rivets. Do this for one strip of plastic at a time and repeat this step for all pieces of plastic. Using a pop rivet gun with 3mm rivets, attach the plastic to the lid covering the mesh. Most of the methods for building bin cages I've seen don't cover the mesh, but doing this just prevents anything from getting scraped on the rough edges and it also gives it a cleaner look. I guess covering the mesh is optional and I understand if you choose to attach the mesh in another way. We chose to make the carrier like this so the cut edge is on the outside and there are no sharp screw points for the owner on the outside and for the hamster on the inside. You could use small screws with nuts and washers, but unless you get the length of them right, there's going to be a bit sticking out. Before you give the carrier to your hamster, make sure you disinfect and rinse it out thoroughly with a pet safe disinfectant and water to kill any germs and remove any tiny pieces of plastic you made when cutting and filing. Put some bedding and toys in and then you're good to go. So yeah guys, that's it for today's video. Please make sure your bin is the right size for the purpose you're making it for. You can also use this method for making a full-time cage. Please make sure that it measures the minimum cage size of 450 square inches if you're going to make it into a full-time cage. Thanks for watching and I'll see you all soon in my next video. Bye for now.